What's up guys, and today I thought I'd do something different. I'm going to be going over the future of Dead Rising, but before I do that I'll have to go over like a brief little history of Dead Rising and what it means. As you guys know, Dead Rising is one of my favourite series ever. Played it ever since I was a kid. I even played the Wii version. that's how mad it is. The Wii version was like a Resident Evil 4 clone. However, it did have its own things and it was unique in its like own gameplay aspect, but besides that it was basically a Resi clone. But yeah, to start us off, Dead Rising 1 came out in 2006 and it was created to really test what the Xbox could do, and it did really well. There were so many details. You can interact with everything. You can chop zombies in half, you can disembowel them, you can interact with them in so many different ways. It had survivors, it had AI, not the best of AIs though. Definitely not the best of AIs. Some of the AIs sucked ass, but besides that, they really did do their best with this title, and you can obviously see with the amount of detail in the game. Like, if you literally go in the office, you'll see a half-eaten burger, you'll see a bunch of pens, you'll see data written down, and it's like they didn't even need to put that there, but it's there. You know what I mean? And then on the Wii version they went for a Resi clone, and it was more or less ported from the Xbox version, but the only thing that they did was change the gameplay, because they kept the cutscenes, and the thing is they had to import the cutscenes, so they kind of looked like ass. But besides that, they did interesting things. For example, the psychopaths that they couldn't fit in because of their coding, because they might have been a bit too complex, they turned them into zombie types instead. So instead of Jodie, Kent, and I believe it's Cliff being the psychopaths that they were, they became zombie types, and that was pretty neat because they offered something interesting. Jodie was a ranged type and a heavy hitter. Basically, if you were carrying about survivors with you, she could shoot them, so you had to be careful. Cliff, he instantly killed survivors, so it was like you had to be careful with that type of zombie type. And then there was Kent, who was more or less a worry to you because he was always jumping around, jumping, kicking, shooting his gun. It was an interesting one for a zombie type compared to the actual psychopaths. And then they offered the dog and the parrot, and I thought that was pretty neat because they didn't need to do that, but they did. It was a nice little bit of detail. I thought the zombie types were actually done pretty well. It's just a shame that they die so easily even on hard mode. But yeah, up next is Dead Rising 2. They had 4 spin-offs of this game. You had Dead Rising 2, you had Off the Record, you had Case Zero, and then you had Case West. Out of all my favourites, I'd have to say Off the Record's up there, Dead Rising 2's next, then I'd say Case West, then Case Zero. They're all good. And then you had Dead Rising 3, which genuinely tried its best. It had good gameplay, its custom weapons were amazing, they really revamped the style. Their custom vehicles were new and very interesting, and shit you not, I thought it was one of the most interesting things that they added to Dead Rising. Their map was expansive, the character looked neat, and the customizations for like character stuff was actually really expanded upon. Like, you actually choose what you upgrade, and I thought that was great, because instead of Dead Rising 1 where it was left to RNGesus, or Dead Rising 2 where everything was fixed till you got to a certain level and then it would be RNG, you had to choose what you wanted, and I thought that was great. I thought it was a great like addition. I thought it was like the best thing they did, because I was getting sick of doing runs in Dead Rising 1 and I only got jump kick until like level 8. You know what I mean? I thought it was a great thing that they added. However, there were some minor points to the game that stopped it from being good, which was, even though the map was expansive, it was very closed off, the story wasn't that interesting, and the characters weren't that interesting. Everything else was great and enjoyable, even the psychopaths were enjoyable. However, they just couldn't carry the story, which sucked. I mean, let me put the list. The psychopaths, some of them were good, and then there was like the odd two that would either make you cringe or be like, oh, what the fuck. Like, there was this kinky gimp guy called Cameron, or the jacked up steroid lady. Oh god, those were bad ones, but besides that, all the other psychopaths were great. That's something I wanted to mention as well. Dead Rising 1 had the most memorable psychopaths. For example, some of them were good people, they just turned because of their circumstances, or some of them were genuinely arseholes, or they believed what they were doing was the right thing. And it's kind of neat because it made you question, are these people even bad? You know what I mean? And then there was Dead Rising 2 who went for the funny route for their psychopaths, which was enjoyable. I thought their psychopaths were great. It's just a shame that they couldn't really carry the Dead Rising 1 feel to a psychopath. Like, killing Cliff really made you feel like you were a shit person. That's how good I thought the psychopaths were in Dead Rising 1. But yeah, now it's time to get to the cursed game, which was Dead Rising 4. This game came out in about 2017, 2018 in the hype of Christmas / Black Friday. It was bad, let's be real. Let me put this, I'll bring out the good points. The level system was there, however it wasn't done well. The map was expansive, however nothing was going on. And the graphic style was actually really appealing to look at. Too bad everything else just sucked ass. To really explain what I'm talking about, Dead Rising 4 is what I would call the series killer. I think this game might end up killing the series on its own because it didn't sell well, and if it did sell, people didn't like what they got. The story wasn't interesting, Frank wasn't Frank, and I didn't like that at all. Vic Chu was a moany little bitch, and the Agent Brad was the most interesting character of all of them, even though he was dull as fuck. Just to show how bad the characters were. The story wasn't interesting. I can't even remember the main villain's name. The zombie types were actually kind of done well, but in my opinion, I think the Wii version did them better. Because even though they went for zombie types and it was an interesting idea, it wasn't executed well because they were so easy to kill. Even with the Wii version, they had some difficulties to them, like Ken was always moving around, or the parrot or the dog were very fast, but they did little damage and stuff like that. The Wii version did it well, and I'm saying if the Wii version of a Dead Rising did better than Dead Rising 4, that's bad. that is very bad. But yeah, it was... Dead Rising 4 just wasn't that interesting or up to par than Dead Rising 1 or Dead Rising 2 or 3. I mean, they lowered the combo weapons from 3 to 4, so you had lower things to have fun with, and the combo vehicles just weren't that interesting. Literally, you could make better ones in Dead Rising 3. It wasn't that interesting. And I'm going to put some clips up from a certain YouTube video I watched recently. This guy does comparisons from Dead Rising 1 to Dead Rising 4 to show the lack of detail in Dead Rising 4, which I thought was pretty neat. But if you actually want to go watch the video, it'll be in the link. But yeah, it's just like, look at it. Like, the detail is so different. And to come back to the gameplay I have on screen, Dead Rising 4 didn't have anything that was interesting collector wise. Sure, they put a bunch of Frank West statues or a bunch of spray tag things about the place. However, in Dead Rising 4, they don't really mean anything. In Dead Rising 1, there was not really any collectible stuff, just more stuff to help you get through your run. For example, a secret here, you were expected to try and be creative, which a lot of people did, and they got themselves a machine pistol, which you can't get anywhere else, by the way. You can't just pick up this weapon, it's a special pickup in hidden areas, and I'm like, that's a great thing. And then Dead Rising 4 is just like, oh, you want this combo weapon you're never gonna make, and it's like, oh yeah, sure, thanks. The only interesting thing that Dead Rising 4 had was the exosuits, and they weren't even done well. All they were was mash X and Y Oonga Boonga strats. It wasn't that interesting, and all I'm saying is, if your skill level from Dead Rising 1 to 4 gets lower, that's bad. So what I mean by this is, in Dead Rising 1, the buttons were very simple and the skills were very simple to do. All you had was X and A. You can combine them, walk forward to an enemy pressing X, walk forward to an enemy pressing A, hold RTX, hold RTA, RTX while falling, and then you'd get like a skill like somersault kick or base crusher or disembowel or knee drop, right? You had all these interesting skills with with the simplest moveset ever. And the game was difficult, and it was so simple at the same time. And it was very interesting because of that reason. And then you get Dead Rising 4 where it's just X and Y, and when you get the chance to, you press Y and B after getting a hit streak. It was very Oonga Boonga in Dead Rising 4, and it wasn't enjoyable in Dead Rising 4. Because all you would do is go around mashing X, mashing Y, and then you do a thing. That's all it was. sure, Dead Rising 3 had the same gameplay, but they also had skills to go along with them. And they had so many combo weapons, you had so much fun just going through all of them. It didn't really matter if it was Unga Boonga. And that was the thing that bothered me, is like, with all the Dead Risings, you had the choice of using your fist as a weapon. It wasn't great, but a lot of people, as myself, really enjoyed just walking about with my fists and having a fun time doing like a fist only run. And then you have Dead Rising 2, they carry the same formula, and then you have Dead Rising 3 and they offer light and heavy attacks, actually making the fists a very good choice as a weapon. And then you get Dead Rising 4, where you can only use your hands if you run out of space in your inventory. If you genuinely have no melee weapons, that's the only time you can use your fists, and I thought it was dumb. But I continue. The soundtrack for Dead Rising 1, 2, and maybe 3 were very memorable. For example, you had the piano theme, you had the one that goes like, yeah, yeah, and then you have Dead Rising 4, which reuses all the old themes, and doesn't offer anything genuinely interesting like Dead Rising 2 did with their metal themes, or how Dead Rising 1 had a very good theme for the Psychopath Adam. Like, they use it as Frank's theme for Marvel vs. Capcom, for fuck's sake. It's like, it's such a good theme. And that's another thing I want to get into, the Psychopaths. They were just so unoriginal in Dead Rising 4. They were essentially fight a bunch of mob guys and then you fight a boss who has no cutscenes, no interests, no nothing. He didn't stand out. Dead Rising 1, you've got so many interesting psychopaths for their story elements. For example, you have Cletus, who thinks he's being attacked by everyone that walks into his place, or Cliff, a man that has went insane after watching his family die and starts reliving Nam again. Or a character like Adam the Clown, after witnessing children die, he thinks the only way to save them is to let this raid go on, even if it kills people. That's how these are the characters' mindsets. Then you had Dead Rising 2, who were just genuinely people that were insane and were funny to watch. And then you had Dead Rising 3, who had good ones, but obviously some iffy ones. And then there was Dead Rising 4. Nothing interesting whatsoever. They tried to rebring the cult stuff back and it didn't work. For example, they didn't have the main guy that was in charge, they didn't have anything interesting, it was just sinner, and then that was it, and then they fought you, and then you killed them because they're basic bitches. That was the problem, and it's like everything in Dead Rising 4 could just be beaten by mashing X and Y, then doing a skill move, and this, it was just, you had genuine like difficulties. Like, this is known as one of the most difficult boss fights in Dead Rising 1 was Cletus or Carlito Underground. The reason why Cletus was the toughest is because of his gimmick of having a ranged weapon and it's tough to get to him. And every time you get really near to him, this is what will happen, he'll pick you up and throw you. He's a tough fight. Definitely, I would put him up there as one of the toughest. That's why people create guides to actually fight Cletus. Like, I shit you not, there are guides out there to help you take down this boss. There's two ways of doing it. It's either you shotgun him or you get close and run, and that's about it. But yeah, I guess that's all I want to cover for the history and how Dead Rising 4 just sucks ass, like the facial animations and stuff. I'll have a bunch of comparisons on screen and stuff. But yeah, that's just about it. Now it's time to talk about the future of Dead Rising. Now, in my opinion, the future doesn't look amazing. The company that was ahead of Dead Rising 4 and 3 and 2 have recently gone under. Like, they're not getting any financial support anymore. However, the good thing about this, if it's going to go back to anyone, it's going to go back to the original team that made Dead Rising 1. So it means that the game will probably not have a co-op feature, even though it was probably one of the most interesting things about Dead Rising 2 and 3 was the fact that you could play it with a bud. So it would suck if they take that out. However, if they add that in, then they just make the perfect game because it'd be Dead Rising co-op. And then there's the fact that if it goes back to the original team, it'll take it back to its original gameplay style of Dead Rising 1 and 2, which is the style that you're seeing right in front of you right now. Which I wouldn't mind because this style is great. Simplistic, fun, still difficult, so I'd be happy if that team took it back on. And the other thing is this will suck to say, is that the series might just die. I mean, its DLC didn't sell well at all, it was terrible for Dead Rising 4. The Dead Rising 4 game itself, it tried its best itself, it tried its best to update itself, but it still had its problems with facial animations, bugginess, the gameplay, the boringness, the story. It'll be tough to recover from something like that. But then again, you have to remember what Devil May Cry did recently. They recovered hard. They came back from the DMC Devil May Cry game, which genuinely sucks ass. I don't care what you say about the gameplay. The gameplay does suck. It's very simplistic and it doesn't really offer anything interesting. I mean, color-coded enemies, for fuck's sake. You have to use a red weapon on red enemies. Nobody likes that. Nobody at all likes that shit. That's why people really love DMC4 and 3. It was free roam, it was wild, it was mad. Same with DMC5, it's really up there as one of my favourites, but the thing is, I can only play it on PS and my buds aren't on PS, so it kinda sucks. But yeah, if the future for Dead Rising 5, it might suck. We might not get a game. We might have to wait 10 years for a game like DMC5. However, Capcom is known to bring back their single player games and have been known to bring them back great right now, like Resident Evil 2. What a game. And then you got like Resident Evil 3 on the verge. I have a feeling that's also going to be a great game. You have Devil May Cry 5, which was a solid game. It's just, if they can bring back Dead Rising in that type of manner, and don't remaster it for fuck's sake, that's all I'm asking. Don't remaster Dead Rising, it doesn't need one. Then that would be great. That would be amazing if they brought it back. However, I have a feeling we'll have a long wait for Dead Rising 5, so all those Dead Rising fans, it will suck, but we will get our time, and it will eventually come. We might just need to wait 10 years, 5 years, or hell, it might be on the road like next year, you never know. That's what I think about the future of Dead Rising. I mean, since the company's gone under, it means we won't go back to the style of Dead Rising 2 or 3, which I'm alright with. It does kind of suck because 3 was genuinely a good title, they just had to work on their maps and their story a bit more. And 2 was a very good title, it was a very enjoyable title. And Dead Rising 1 obviously being known as the godsend that was sent upon the Dead Rising series. It'd be great if we went back to that and made it co-op and just had an interesting story. And they don't try to kill off Frank West for DLC. Like, I can't believe they did that for Dead Rising 4. In the DLC, they kill off Frank West to use him as a story piece for their next DLC. Which sucks ass. Nobody wants to pay DLC to watch their favourite character get turned into a zombie. Like, what the fuck, Capcom? But anyway, I think that's enough of the ranting. All I'm going to say is, here's hoping for the next few years that we actually get a Dead Rising title and hopefully it gets worked on and it won't be a piece of shit. Anyway guys, that's been my opinion on the future and the brief history of Dead Rising. I kind of went all out for this. This is like one of my favourite game series and I'm thinking about doing a deck profile next time. Anyway guys, I'll see you in the next one. Hope you have a good one. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe, and yeah, see ya.